Freshly restored cars are supposed to be shiny, right? Shiny paint, shiny chrome. But what happens if you got a set of polished aluminum or stainless trim and it's all tarnished and dingy and worn out and ugly and scratched like this? Well, that's the dilemma that we ran up against because we're running these valve covers on a project, and these are only a few years old, but they've tarnished, and oxidized, I guess the proper word, and they've got a few scratches on them. So we decided to bite the bullet and get a real buffing system for the shop and learn how to use it so we can do this kind of stuff in-house rather than send the trim out and send all the aluminum stuff out to get polished. We can do it in our own place, right? So when we get done tuning this one up, it's going to look like this one that we've already done. Ooh, shiny. So this is our shiny new buffing motor, and it looks kind of like a grinder, but it's got some basic differences. The one being the really long arms. These arms are really long so that when you buff things, you have a lot of access. You're not right up against the buffing motor with your work. So that's the first thing you'll see there that's a little bit different. This one is also a 2-speed design. This has both turtle and Revit, selectable here. And then you'll notice it's on a stand, and we recommend using the buffer on a stand because if this was on a bench, you'd have your lower bench surface right here, and again, if you're trying to polish something big, you'd be hitting the bench. So the stand makes it nice to be able to get all the way around this. And the proper way to buff stuff means you got to use the right wheel with the right compound with the right material. And how do you know all that? Well, they put a chart here on the front, which is pretty smart. These columns are different types of metals. First one is hard metal, stainless, iron. Then we get to brass, aluminum. Then we get to chrome and plated stuff. And then here's soft things like gold and silver. So what you want to do is look up the type of wheel you're supposed to use and then the kind of compound. And in this case, we're supposed to use a spiral wheel for the first step and Tripoli compound, okay? Now, you can't just get these buff wheels and compounds at your local hardware store down the street. They might have one or two, but you can see the variety of different combinations of stuff here. There's this big grid. So Eastwood makes it easy, and they put it all in various kits. And the kit we've got ended up with 8 different buffing wheels, which are all these, and then a variety of different compounds, which we decided to put in a little toolbox, which are all these tubes. So just like all the various compounds, each wheel has a different purpose. Some of them are real rigid, like this one, and they cut really, really heavily. They're real aggressive. Some of them are really soft, and they're for more polish, towards the end to make things shiny. The most important thing to remember is you can only use one compound with each particular wheel. If you're going to use this heavy cutting wheel, this one is called a sisal or a sizzle wheel. This usually requires a heavy compound like emery, which is real aggressive. So when you get done using this process, you take the wheel off the buffer and then you put the next one on, and it might be something a little bit softer like this one, which is a cotton buff, and it's used a different compound that's a little bit softer. You obviously don't want to put the heavy cutting compound on the softer buff or the soft polish compound on the cutting buff, because you'll just contaminate the wheel, and the next time you go to use it, you could do more harm than good. So we found that it's a good idea to store the wheels out of dust. We put them in these Ziploc gallon bags. They're 10-inch wheels, and they just happen to fit in these bags pretty nice. And then Eastwood sends a sticker with each one that you can put on the bag. It shows you what kind of buff pad it is, and then we just went ahead and circled what compound has been used with this one, so that it takes all the guesswork out. Okay, so it's finally time to start buffing, and got all the goofy safety gear on. The Eastwood kit comes with a new pair of gloves and this full face shield. And you're thinking, really a full face shield? I mean, this is soft. You could fall right on this and not, really hurt yourself. But what you got to remember is that this sucker spins fast, and as it's spinning, it's going in this direction, which means you'll be buffing down here, but this side is going to be potentially throwing things up and right at you, which isn't cool. So if you're afraid that your friends are all going to make fun of you, do your buffing when nobody's around. So the first thing you want to do is, we've obviously used this wheel already because it's got some black oxidation on it, but the compound comes in these cans, and we're going to dress the wheel with some of the compound just by touching it here while it's spinning. And if these things get too caked up, that's when you use the old wheel dressing tool. Just apply it like this, and it will comb sticky stuff out of the buffing wheel. So we're going to start. Now when you start buffing, you're going to want to do kind of a small area at a time, go back and forth, and just lightly brush the whole part. You don't want to put too much heat on it, don't put too much pressure on it, let this wheel do all the work for you. The other thing, keep it below the halfway mark on this wheel down here, so that if it throws it, it'll throw it at the ground and not up in your head. Okay, so when you think you got, pretty much roughed in, it's time to switch to the finer compound and the finer buff. But before you do, you want to clean this real good so that you remove the first compound and get ready for the second one. Okay, this time we're going to be using White Rouge on the soft cotton buff wheel. Second verse, same as the first. Okay, so this is the end of the second half, and you can see how much of a shine we put on this thing compared to what we started with, and we got a lot of compound to clean out of this. But there's some really hard to reach places inside here, like this little spot where we can't really get into. But if you have a Dremel, a little moto tool, you can get these little buff wheels, and these two are the exact same type of wheel that we have on our big buffer, just small versions. So you can use the same compound and the same principle just to get in the tight places. All right, so I think we have probably just over an hour in doing the one we did today. Overall, I think it's pretty nice. Can't even tell the two apart now, huh? Just like we said.